Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take a little bit of a different turn. I'm going to do a little video on the anatomy of a lever drag reel. Some of the folks that have been writing into me, asking me comments and the like, have said that they seem to be intimidating. Lever drag reels are just like the conventional counterparts. There seems to be a set pattern of engineering this. Each one varies a little bit, but at the end the core is pretty much the same in terms of being able to work these through. So the lever drag typically puts pressure on an internal disc, pulling the spool to tighten it, loosening the spool to release it, and has a full swing of range of drag settings along the band. So let's take it apart. I'll show you what goes on inside this. We'll see how much time there is on the video to put it back together. This one is defective in that it has a spring that doesn't pull the spool back in, and we're gonna have to go find a replacement spring. So if we leave this in parts, it's okay, but it'll show you pretty much how a lever drag operates. Now typically you don't need to take the handle off on the lever drag. I'm going to do that for the purposes of this video, but the lever drag on the back side, the drive for the reel is just a straight gear, almost back to the direct drive reels of the early 1920s and so on, right? There is no drag stacks on them. It's just a simple drag forward, and all the action happens in this reel. All the action happens on the spool. Whether it's a big Penn Gold Series international reel, or a Shimano TLD, or a Penn lever drag GLD, or any of those, they're all pretty much the same in terms of how they operate. Again, the pieces and parts may be a little bit different, but in the end, they're pretty much the same. So it all starts here. This is the device that pulls the spool to the plate. It has a compression spring, and then inside this, and take everything out, there's a little ramp nut here, and on the ramp there's two indentations, and almost universally this is the type of a drive that you have. It operates against the lever, which has corresponding points, and as you turn this up the ramp, it pulls this back out, and pulling this out engages the drag. And you'll see that, you can see how the spool is moving here. So the whole idea on the lever drag is to pull this spool this way and then engage the two plates to compress against that for the drag. So let's go ahead and take this this portion of the reel off. I'm going to use much to everybody who's probably gasping out there, I'm going to go use a mechanical screwdriver here, because there's 6 of these side plate screws, and just to facilitate time, I'm going to back them out mostly with this driver. I've talked about this before. You can use that. I don't like to use it. Here's a case where I'm just trying to save a little bit of time. On the reinstall, when I put this back together, I will not use that because I fear over torquing the side plate and components. So I won't do that going back, but I'll do that here now. Just again, this is a take apart to show you how the pieces and parts come together on this reel. This is a Shakespeare reel. It's a Fulmar. I'm not familiar with it that much, but again, it's pretty much indicative of what a lever drag looks like. So even if you took a Penn International part, you would pretty much see the same thing. Just a direct drive that goes to the handle side. As you can see, I'm turning it. There's an anti-reverse dog, and there's a bearing. That's it. And there's no drag component on the drive side of this reel. All of the action happens in the spool. So you can tell on the back end there's no bearing here. There is a click mechanism, and there's an indentation that holds the spool shaft. So this spool shaft does not turn. This is the one where the lever drag sits on. It doesn't turn. The whole purpose here again is to pull this device to get to engaging the drags, which are back here. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how to take it apart, what it looks like. If you were servicing your reel, you would want to do the steps that I'm going to do here, which is taking out the spool shaft so that you can gain access to the back bearing. Excuse me. And to do that, in this case, there's a tie-down collar with 2 small screws, and as you're noticing, I'm using the parts bucket to keep all of the screws in them. That's just because I don't want to lose track of them. Once you have that collar off, you can pull the pin on the shaft. That pin sits in the groove here to hold that shaft in place, and then you can remove the collar. This is the collar, and then you have access to the spool shaft, which you can pull out. And then you have access to a second bearing here. On the other side of this, we have the drive gear, which rides here. And so that drives the wind feature. And then we have the assembly that holds the pressure plate and the drag in this reel. And that can be removed usually with a screwdriver or pliers or some such. There we go. That's come through there. And then we have another bearing, and we have a screw. I'm sorry, a spring inside here, and that's what's defective in this one. This spring is not doing well. And that's going to have to be replaced. And right now I'm trying to find where I can get a replacement spring for this. But when we go to replace the spring, we will remove this bearing, the collar, and the spring, and then we'll go replace the spring. That's why this reel is not working. But again, right now we're just kind of going through how the features work. So here's your drive again. We'll take that gear. That gear comes from this side. Again, that sits on here. And what's happening is you operate this reel, you're pulling these 2 plates together. You're pulling the spool in to press these 2 drags to form the drag set. So let's just take that off. We'll show it to you. There's an E-clip on this. So we have the base, we have the drag pressure plate, we have a drag washer, we have a second pressure plate, we have the main washer, and then that rides in this channel here. Put that C-clip back on. It rides in the channel, and when compressed, they provide the drag tension to keep the spool turning. So I'm just going to put that back for now. These have a lot of grease on them, so we're okay there. I'm going to put that back in. I'll put the water collar back in. I'm going to put the spool back on. That bearing is already oiled. We'll put the spool collar back on. And again, if you have the bucket, you can go and grab your pieces and parts as you do that. And for those of you that are new to my videos, I always recommend keeping the small parts in a parts bucket, parts tray. I also recommend taking pictures along the way so that if you've forgotten how something lines up or where the piece belongs, that you're able to go and look back as a reference point on those pictures so that you can continue your work and not have any problems in the reassembly. Those of you that watch the videos also know I have a small parts problem, and that's what I'm working on now. There's a small screw here on both sides of this collar that I'm trying to get set here. So seems like that's a universal for all the reels I work on. Somebody's got a small screw set up, and good old me has a small screw problem. So okay, so then we're going to put this other one back up top here. This only comes with 2 screws on the collar. There's 4 holes, 2 screws. Not sure why Shakespeare did it that way, but they did. That's okay. You'll also notice I'm wearing a latex glove here. I like to keep the contaminants off of my hand if possible. Okay, and then there's a pin that goes in the back of this spool. You can turn that just to make sure that we've got good turning, and it is. And then that pin sits in the frame back here to anchor that this piece. Okay, once that's done, we have the gear goes on. And the side plate goes on. And those side plate screws go on. So it's relatively simple once you know how to gain access to those drags to make sure that you can lubricate those drags. And once you have the sequence down, like I said, this is a Shakespeare reel. It's no different in any significance with a Pennant, Big Pen International, with a Shimano TLD. With the Penn lever drag reels, GLD 45 for example, some of the others. It's the concept is fairly simple. Just pull one for the other, and you can be successful doing it that way. So next one up is this set. It's actually 2 pieces. There's a little caps. This has a little trigger device that clicks behind it. So it's best to put that on first so that you can hook it over the bar there. Come back and put that on over the 2 moving pieces. And then there's 2 screws that have the stop butts on them. One goes in each corner. From the disassembly you would remember that, or if you had taken pictures you'll remember that. Here's the other one. That goes on this side. Again, being small parts. And then there's one more, which is an offset taper screw, which goes to hold down the one as it travels across. And that's the last of the screws. And we would remount the tensioner that I showed you, which is what pulls the spool in and out. That would be this piece, and again you have the corresponding studs on this side, so you make sure that's seated. Then the screw cap goes on. This is a tightener. You use this one to adjust the amount of play in the throw arm. We don't have this seated properly. Put the handle back on, and that's how you do it. So that's how the reel is set up, and as soon as I get a source for my spring, I'll be able to make this this reel work properly. Okay, there we go. And what you're hearing there is the you're hearing the spring not pulling in the piece. But otherwise, I wanted to just share with you how these things are assembled. And like I said, this one's waiting for repair on a part that I don't have, so I can't make it work properly. But I hope this has been of value to you. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it. If you want to see more of these, including probably when I take this apart to replace that spring, then subscribe to my channel, and you'll learn not only these projects, but the other projects that come into my shop. Thank you for watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.